all new. AM1150 WTMP.com.
Okay, ready.
Here we are.
We ready to go.
Live.
All right, so it's another Saturday. It's 1 o'clock, and I know all you guys know what time it is, so we can kind of fade down the intro. See, there we go.
Put your seatbelts on, folks.
Yeah. It's not going to be one of those kind of shows. This week it's going to be a different kind of show. Kind of like last week, we had a special show because of Otis Anthony. Otis Anthony had passed, and we kind of did a commemorative memorial show, to talk about Otis and another great citizen of this community has passed in this last week, and so we're gonna do our best to make a connection to David A. Straz.
That's right.
Jr. So we're gonna go ahead and get the show started, and we're gonna say our piece, and if you got something you want to say or add to the conversation, and they got, I think it's currently going on right now, memorial service for David Straz downtown. So so for those who was interested in going, I think it's over with at 1, if not 1-2. So I know they had something for him downtown today. For those who had a busy schedule like I did this morning, work in that which you can and that which you can't, don't worry about it. So, all right. So this is Porch Talk Radio with your host Eddie Adams Jr. and Gabriel Phillips is here.
That's right.
And Tim is back. Tim has been on a hiatus for a couple of weeks, so
the video will look much nicer now.
So, well, the video that we have will be much nicer. We actually had video from the last 2 weeks, but you can't see it because somebody didn't do what they supposed to did with it. But
whatever, he was out of town.
We ain't gonna call out and throw Gabriel under the bus.
No.
Under the bus like
no shame
that.
being cast here.
So anyway, that all being said, Porch Talk Radio, your host Eddie Adams Jr. For those who want to call in during the show, the call-in number here at WTMP is 813-251-9867. 813-251-9867. For those who want to call after the show is over, sometime through the course of the week, to talk about anything and everything, my cell phone number, Eddie Adams Jr.'s cell phone number is 813-230-3312. 813-230-3312. Website, porchtalkradio.com. And if you want to email me, again, we have a email address is Eddie, EDDIE, at porchtalkradio.com. So, as I was saying, I've heard a lot, and a lot will come in the following days and weeks and months. Because David Straz was a billionaire, and he's a billionaire that sought to get involved with politics. And usually, people with money, they got fortune, and they got power, and so that fame and political thing is a whole nother animal. And I'm gonna say David didn't deal with it well because he had a lot of people around him who were butt kissers or ass kissers, people who didn't say no or that wasn't right. David was many a thing, but what he didn't have a great personality. So that, some people get in front of a camera, in front of a microphone.
So he wasn't charismatic, you're saying. He didn't flow with it.
And you can see that they had talent, or they had a knack for communicating. And David, like I say, he made his money, and he had lots of money, but part of that process was You gotta have enough people around you that know what they're doing to help create your image. And a lot of times, there's some folks out there who are elected officials who have absolutely, and I'm not talking about David, but absolutely have no personality whatsoever. Mm-hmm. And so that's why you see them as elected officials, but you never see them in public. You never see them actually doing their own commercial, actually mm-hmm. doing their own stuff. And it's a lot of people who he could have hired and helped create an image for him. He could have probably won that election. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, they kept telling him what he wanted to hear, because I guess they were more concerned about getting paid than helping him get elected. This is me talking. This is Eddie Adams Jr. talking. So if I'm talking about David Straz, I'm saying something that may upset you, I'm sorry. But the truth in the process is the truth in the process.
But you knew him, didn't you meet him a few times? Talk with him?
I had a bunch of conversations with David Straz.
A bunch, okay.
That's
so you really know who he was.
That's what we're going to talk about.
Uh-huh.
So again, David had a big heart, which was something that the whole community David Straz, his name probably on the biggest building downtown in lights, the Straz Center. And David had proposed another $25 million expansion. Currently, they're gonna build a hotel. So the Straz Center is gonna have a hotel somewhere next to it down there.
Oh, really?
And they got some other improvements.
They got that old hotel next to it they could tear down, I'll tell you what.
Well, no, they're gonna build one. They're gonna build a new one. They got the property. They got the money.
Okay.
Matter of fact, if I'm correct, they're currently working on the addition and working on the hotel. So that's stuff that he had been talking about and been part of the plan and part of the works for a while there. Mm-hmm. So
okay, good deal. So
that's just the Straz Center. They built a dormitory on the campus of the University of Tampa. Got his name on it. There was a health center down in Manatee that got his name on it. A couple of buildings at a couple of universities that he attended, that he took interest in, that he built facilities and got his name on them. And then there's David's whole life. I met David Straz, a year or so ago. And part of my meeting David had to do with, you heard us on this show talking about having a black bank, a black credit union, and so we had some meetings with folks in the community. We had meetings with pastors in the community, and part of that whole process was, how do we as a black community, come out of this and get to loan and preserve and build and protect
strengthen
and protect ourselves.
Yeah.
And part of that has to do with the fact that my idea initially was, we have black churches who every Monday and Tuesday, raise millions of dollars from collections on Sunday and Wednesday and however many collections they have through the course of the week. But they put all that money in banks, and none of those banks are black banks, because there are no black banks here in this area. So they put it in banks who do not turn around and give access to that money,
reinvest it back in the community,
to the people, to the community.
Yeah.
So we started out saying Black Credit Union, and through our meetings with David said, well, it don't have to be a credit union. We could buy a bank that's already got the charter and already got the certificates and already got the other thing. And he actually gave me a list, for the state of Florida. These are the banks that we could buy for $4 million. Not that me or anybody that I personally knew, had $4 million that they could go out and buy a bank for the community with. But that was his idea, and I think part of his thinking was, I am a banker. I understand this process. I understand financial institution, and we had another ex-credit union person by the name of Art Wood.
Excellent individual.
Art Wood was in the process, and Al Lee was in the process, and Reverend Thomas Scott was in the process, and And these were people who we was meeting, working on this particular problem, because everybody knew what the problem was. What we were trying to do was come up with a solution. And part of the solution was, okay, well, we look at financial institution as a whole. Mm-hmm. So we was not just looking at the concept of a black credit union, because we all know, a lot of black folks don't mind putting their money in credit union, because you put your money in credit union, you as a member own the institution. So there's no,
you have a share of it, right?
No board of directors, or nobody that makes profit the motive for you doing what you're doing. You can actually be guilt free in helping the community. That can become your goal. That can become your ulterior motive. That can become your agenda. So again, doing our research, David came up with a list of possible institution that we could buy and jumpstart the process, as opposed to starting from scratch, applying to the state, applying to the federal, because they got state credit union, they got federal credit unions, and then, starting getting the building, then staffing the building, having so much money to have, deposits. See, one thing, a lot of folks don't understand about a bank has the opportunity, if you put $100 in a bank, you physically go to a bank and deposit $100. Well, the bank can turn around and lend $1,000 on your $100. Mm-hmm. So because it can lend $1,000 on your $100, and if you got $1,000 in the bank, you put $1,000 in the bank. Well, then you can lend $10,000. That's why very seldom do banks go bankrupt. So they don't have to have all the cash on hand in reserve that they actually physically loan. They have this 90% relationship to the 1%. So 1 to 9. So and that's from the federal government, and then they could put the FDIC and secure it. So if you put your money in the bank, and it had one of those federal security
up to 100,000
deposit security issue thing, then for the most part you was able to reap the benefits without risk. Now again, if you had $5 or $6 million, the federal government was not going to be responsible, for somebody to rob the bank and took your money. I'm just saying. So I guess people with money kind of spread it out, or they put it in stocks and bonds and invested in
diversified
in other means.
It's a fancy way to say the same thing.
Yeah. So in case somebody broke in and robbed a bank or something, you didn't have it all in one spot and could actually take a loss on your money. But again, David heart was in, how do we do something for the community? How do we do something for the black community? And David came to the meetings. He brought his bodyguard with him, but he came. and part of the process was we had agreements, we had disagreements, and sometimes you have to think about it. You're sitting there having arguments or disagreements with a billionaire. I don't have, I just do have a for the old folks say, a pot to piss in. So I didn't have a bunch of money, but what we did have, we had an idea. There you go. And we have people who actually listen to this show, and we had folks who was kind of following the idea. Now where it was falling down at, because we got to the point where David say, well, when are the black churches gonna put up some money? I think that's where we were at the end of the process, and then he didn't win the election. So I think David may have still did this deal. It wasn't so much about the election, but had he won, he definitely would have been looking at it a different light.
He would have pushed forward with it, right?
Yeah,
okay. I understand.
I think going forward, had he won and become the mayor of Tampa, he would have had to and wanted to make a bigger investment in the community.
Well, you actually cared because you knew him and you talked to him, and he really had interest in it. He gave you time.
Well, it wasn't the $4 million. So I don't think, the $4 million that it would took to bring a bank here, I don't think that would have stopped David. And part of the whole process was, too, just the black churches and the money and the deposits. You know, how do we get that money? How do we get access to it? How do we get a community to get this self-pride thing happening to where we could talk the black pastors into showing up, you know, and making deposits and making their congregations, you know, members of this. That's why we came with the credit union idea. You know, making the members of all these different churches that participated, you know, they could reap the benefits. So that means they're building funds, and when they need to make improvements to their church or to their community or to the homes, you know, the members' home, you know, we had a resource, and we didn't have to go out and beg and stand in line, you know, at all these other banks and get turned down and jump through all the hoops, you know, because again, they all know we had no other resource. So to have another resource available is a power thing.
Sure.
You know, and people can take advantage of you when they know you're powerless, when they know you're weak, when they know you have no other resources.
Take advantage of you, same old, same old.
And that makes a difference here in Tampa and here in Hillsborough County. And David Straz knew that, he understood that, and he was willing, you know, to put his money where his mouth was. You know, that's the other thing. You know, we had got to the point where we had did the research. We had met with some of the state credit union people. They'd come down and we had phone conversations and we was getting serious. I mean, we was getting serious because it became a serious endeavor once David got involved. Because David, you know, David was a billionaire. You know, he gave the whole thing credibility.
He brought resources to the table.
Yeah, well, he brought the ability to have resources brought to the table. Because at the end of the day, nobody put up any actual money, but the actual money is still in the black community, still in those churches. So the idea is still sound. And matter of fact, at one of the meetings, we had a conversation where I kind of talked to David about getting ThxGvg involved. And I say, as a billionaire to another billionaire, you know, maybe you can set some meeting up. Maybe there's a few people around here that may be billionaires and they're not as popular. You know, they don't have the name that ThxGvg have or David Straz had, but they're still billionaires, so they still got the money. So that's a meeting that you can call and kind of talk to them, have a conversation with them, and then, you know, when we come to the table, we can bring the community part of it, and maybe we can look at it from a different angle, make something happen. So they had a memorial service today down at Curtis Dixon Park downtown, right outside the Glazer Center for David today. So if it may be still going on, it may be ended at 1 or 2. But I know it was scheduled. It started at 11, and of course I wanted to go, but I also had a commitment to do something else, and spent all morning at my Saturday morning breakfast group meeting, and we actually had a meeting with Steve Carell.
Who's that?
Who is the new president at USF.
Oh, I'd want to take time with that too.
Well, again, all this stuff was important, so you kind of have to figure that you make as much as you can, and
absolutely, these guys are busy usually.
And every now and then, you know, your plates get too full, and you got to pick and choose.
You're right about that.
What you can do and what you can't do. So the memorial service, I know there's gonna be a lot of people there, and some folks who knew David a lot better than I did. They said that the family's gonna have another service. And they actually have a plot out at I think Garden of Memories Cemetery. So David has a family crypt tomb, you know, big monumental thing there, and that may be him thinking ahead.
He's a planner, brother. He's a planner.
Because they actually had it done last year, a year before last. So.
Well, I still want to be buried like old King Tut.
So it's been there. So.
Just saying.
So that's something. So anyway, again, and if you want to call in and you got something to say, you know, the call-in numbers here 813-251-9867. So if you want to call the show and put your 2 cents in,
there you go.
I know we did Otis last week, and this week we're doing David Straz. David Straz was a person who thought outside of the box. He said when he first started in banking, his job was to sweep the floors, and he would stay after the bank was closed, and he was up north somewhere, so he was talking about, you know, it used to get cold, and he was there, you know, at night, you know, with his broom sweeping the bank, and so he made it all the way. I mean, you know, it's kind of like the American dream, because he made it all the way from being the bank floor sweeper, janitor, to the owner of a bunch of banks. And he got to the point to where he sold those banks and I guess made a bunch of money. You know, that's how he
Just
became,
a little bit.
That's how he became a billionaire.
Can you imagine that? And that can only happen in America, I say, where you can just start out just sweeping the floors, clean the bathrooms, whatever, and one day own the whole stinking facility, the building, the people there, and have your name on it, and just this happens in America.
Happens all the time.
And you know, but I bet you he put in some hours on that deal.
Well, again, you know,
I bet it wasn't handed to him.
He was 77, so he wasn't a young man, you know, but he made his money in banking. So
and then he reinvested back in the community to help people out. That's awesome. That's why he's supposed to work.
And the David Straz Performing Arts Center, I think someone said, you know, I heard one of the newscasters say it's the biggest single charitable contribution made in Tampa Bay. So so that's a big deal.
Yeah.
You know, and some of his other work, and he got a foundation. So his foundation gave a lot of money to a lot of other media. And matter of fact, the Juneteenth event that we do in June, celebrating Juneteenth, you know, he gave us a contribution, not this year, but last year. So he was part of that whole part. But we got a contribution from the David Straz Foundation.
Okay.
So again, you know, I'm saying, you know, the community lost a great soul. Now I've had a bunch of people ask me what happened, because it was the information was pretty much sketchy. You know, they said he went on a fishing trip. He was up in Homosassa Springs, somewhere up north of Tampa. He went up on a fishing trip and they stayed overnight, and they found him on the floor near his bed with his heart pills.
Oh.
So evidently he must have had a heart attack. I'm saying he had something that happened, because when the person that found him, he was already dead. I'm just telling you what the news and what was in the newspaper. So I'm not making,
well, I think you're doing better than they did on that Chief Justice Scalia, that you woke up, or he didn't wake up with a pillow on his head, and then suddenly somebody called in the coroner, and the coroner said on the phone, yeah, he died of suicide, we think.
Yeah.
And that was it.
Yeah.
So you got more than they did on that guy there, Eddie.
Well, again.
Just politics.
Yeah. Again, the nitroglycerin tablets that he had indicate that he had some kind of heart condition previously. So.
And that you don't play with.
Yeah.
I had a buddy who used to take those at random, and he would mess himself up and end up in the emergency room regularly.
All right. Well, we got a caller. So, welcome to Porch Talk Radio. This sad Saturday morning, the week before Thanksgiving. What say
gobble,
you?
Gobble.
What say you, and where are you calling from?
Good afternoon, brothers. Peace and blessings. I just want to say this. I didn't know David Straz, personally, but I knew politically that was our best hope if we want to see a significant shift in the politics of Tampa. I think he won significant precincts within the African community, because the business of usual is a continuation from the Buckhorn position to what we presently have. And so the community did lose all kind of possibilities of being able to walk, share ideas, look for new clean directions in which this community should move in. I want to also say this, Eddie. I think it's appalling that a community that have contributed and a people that have contributed so much to the build of what Tampa looked like, to see at the very final in those in our community that have resources, the nickels, dimes that they pick up off the collection plate, we haven't been able to move our community further. We also have an absence of those that will speak truth to power, that we have the articles written for us in plain sight, talking about opportunity zones, community block grant funding, and we see who's the beneficiaries of all of these resources, and our community still stand in despair and misery. So, David Straz lost. We mourn for him and his family, but our community has to have a resurrection of awakening that we just can't remain dead.
Yeah.
Dead in our activism, that we're going to have to get up, we're going to have to speak out. We're not going to just become, they're little cheerleaders if they give us $1 to do one individual thing in our community. They are stealing it all.
Yeah.
They are stealing it all.
Yep.
And we're going to have to make up our mind in 2020 that we're going to have to be grown women, grown men, black folks that's going to make a difference for our community. Thank you so much.
Amen. God bless you, sister.
Thank you, Sister
Ooh,
Connie.
that's strong.
I'm gonna tell you people something. As a community, we have the opportunity, because we don't get the opportunity to put pressure on the elected officials and the people who actually run and control Hillsborough County and Tampa Bay. I mean, when that NFL comes and the threat of the NFL not coming, when that happened, all them people who don't give a crap about what you say or what you think, if they think there's a possibility of the black community having any kind of verbal uprise or any kind of national speak, or say if you threaten to do something that may interfere with those hundreds of millions or those billions of dollars that's coming here, then people listen to you. And it only happened with the threat. So you got to have a viable threat that a bunch of folks may lose some stuff. Matter of fact, and I'm gonna say this, and I'm gonna say this, and hopefully none of y'all get mad, but people get killed for less. Mm-hmm. If you become a significant enough threat, you may end up dead yourself. I'm just saying, because people have ended up committing suicide, or saying that they commit suicide, or having questionable deaths. It's not happening here in Tampa, because the last time we had this thing, it was when the Gasparilla parade got stopped, and the NFL said that you're going to put some blacks on the different boards of directors. At that point, they had no blacks on none of the major board of directors from TICO and HCC and Tampa General, a lot of places, that were significant figures within the community, but they hadn't even thought about having black board members, even though 26%, depends on who you're listening to, of the community is black. And that's the issue, that's the concern for this community, for the community and black and Hispanic to almost be a majority-minority community, but the leadership and the representation of blacks and Hispanics in the leadership position and that make decisions about their community and the other communities, is almost, negligible. It's almost non-existent. And I don't blame white folks, and I say white and black, I don't blame white folks for that. I blame the black folks for that, because not only do they take you for granted, you've been highly disrespected. Because, I went to Tea and Conversation this morning, and I was telling folks that the other night I went to informational event held by the NAACP, and they were talking about the Super Bowl coming to town, and someone said that there was a time, and most of the old folks remember this, when the Seminole Indians had just a smoke shop, which they still do have a smoke shop, and they had an Indian wrestling alligators.
What?
That was it. They had a hut and I don't want to call it a house, but they had a building, you know, what you bought the cigarettes from, you know, the discounted cigarettes.
Where was that now?
And the place where they got the Seminole Hard Rock Hotel.
They've gone a long way.
That whole place used to just be an Indian hut,
I had no idea.
Pond, and a building that they sold cigarettes at. That was all that was there. And they didn't even own the whole block because there was a hotel on the front of the lot, and the Seminole Indian thing was on the back part of the lot. You know, so give or take 40, 50 years ago.
Boy, they've gone a long way.
Now they went from that to, and as the story goes, under one of the buildings downtown when they were doing excavation, they found some Indian bones. So, of course, they stopped it. They went through litigation, and that whole process of creating what we now see as a multi-billion-dollar enterprise on the corner of Hillsborough Avenue and Orient Road, that whole thing started out as a alligator wrestling, smoked cigarette selling venture. Probably 3 buildings, you know, and a pen. And what you did was you went up and you paid your dollar or 50 cents or whatever it was back then, and you saw 2 shows a day or 3 shows a day of this guy wrestling the alligator.
That's amazing. I know right now that one of their work crews they have there works 24/7, and they just do upholstery. So when people put their cigarette down the chair and it burns a hole, they quickly pull that item back. So they have a crew that just does upholstery for them 24/7. Well, that's unreal.
Well, they just opened up in the last couple of months. They just opened up that whole new building and a whole new parking lot. You know, so they probably built vertical as much as you probably, if you want to go dollar for dollar, cent for cent, acre per acre, they probably produce and have put so much money into that site that used to be the site is still owned by the Seminole Indian tribe. Okay. So that's how they get away with the casino part. But all that money that goes in there, and the state, I think they pay the state $200 million a year to be able to gamble. You know, and $200 million is nothing. They probably make that in a week. You know,
24/7, that thing is open, Eddie. They're taking money in 24/7.
Holidays.
Oh, you can't get in there. The buses are lined up trying to get into that place.
But that whole enterprise started from very, very humble, very meager existence, you know, and the respect for the Indian. Indian dead 200 or 300 years, you know, found some bones downtown, and they was willing to make sure the Seminole Indian tribe was righted. You know, that they were done right, you know, by the fact that somebody dug up some bones. Now, they dug up black folks' bones for years and years, building the building, they dig them up, move them, and keep on going. And that's probably why we got the problem we got now.
Moving on.
We got, you know, the problem with Tampa Housing Authority, you know, the problem with King High School.
Oh, did you hear about that this week? They found 180 bodies
and they got a problem at MacDill Air Force Base. And they no telling where, you know, in Hillsborough County that they got black cemeteries because, again, disrespect. You know, they it's not a big thing. The one at King High School, that was a cemetery. It was marked as a cemetery. When the county bought it, well, when the school board bought it, it was a cemetery, and they pretty much said we're gonna respect and honor and keep it, you know, in the high esteem.
The right thing.
And it would always be memorized or remembered.
Right.
Memorialized.
That's it.
Memorialized.
We can do this. Teamwork, folks.
But shortly after they bought it, you know, all that and somehow all the folks that was involved in the whole process of keeping it and remembering it and all that kind of stuff, they had a memory sweep, you know, like the Vulcans used to do on Star Trek. You know, they had somebody had a mind meld, and all of a sudden all that black stuff and all the memories of the black folks who was under the ground there, you know, and I saw something say they found 157 coffins. Well, that's a pauper's graveyard. For anybody to understand what a pauper's graveyard was, it's a bunch of people out there that wasn't in that was not in any coffins. Because back then, if you was a pauper and you couldn't afford a coffin, they kind of wrap you up and put you in the ground and
call it good.
Put some dirt on you.
There you go. Biodegradable.
Better
than bones.
And I'm not talking about like mummified.
No.
They just wrap you up and put you in the ground. You didn't even get grave marker. I mean, it's a lot of folks that was in paupers' grave.
Mummified is actually pretty fancy.
And you got to take in consideration too. There was a period of time in the 20s and the 30s where they had tuberculosis. They had a big tuberculosis outbreak here in Tampa, Florida.
By the hundreds, they were out.
So much so that they had a tuberculosis hospital over there on 30th and 30th and Hillsborough. There's a hospital that used to be the tuberculosis hospital, and that's the black hospital. So I know a lot of folks went there and didn't make it out. Well, they didn't. They walked in and didn't walk out. So
yeah.
And a lot of those were paupers. A lot of those folks, couldn't afford, good health care, and they couldn't afford to be buried. And so
back then, Eddie, I think healthcare was much easier. It was just green. You didn't have any green. You didn't have any healthcare. It was much simpler.
But that's what I'm saying. That's why we got.
There was no deductibles to deal with.
So it might be 12
cash
black cemeteries around Hillsborough County that nobody has mentioned or nobody has come up with.
Okay.
And they're, oh wow, that was a cemetery. Oh wow. I mean, I like it when. And I'm sorry, it's not politically correct. I like when white folks say, "Oh, we didn't know that there was a cemetery there." Well, how is it that you know all these damn white cemeteries?
Oh, come on, now, somehow not being politically correct.
You don't forgot. You don't forgot there were like 12 black cemeteries around. That now got buildings and shops and asphalt and all kind of stuff on them. And like I say, the fact that one Indian burial plot was discovered downtown. Now they got billions of dollars out there, on the Seminole Indian reservation that belong to the Seminole Indians. And you want to talk about disrespect for the black community? And I'm not comparing. I'm just stating some facts here. That whole thing came out of the fact that they found some Indian bones. And I don't mean to put it as bluntly as I'm putting it, but I'm putting it that way for a reason. If black folks were respected in this community, as opposed to being disrespected to the degree that we are disrespected, it wouldn't be an issue. But it is an issue. And not just in Hillsborough County. I'm probably quite sure all over the country you're going to find some black cemeteries or some black burial sites that have been industrialized, and somebody has figured out how to make money. Because memorializing a cemetery full of black bodies is not a good use of money. It's not a good use of land. So somebody who owned the land 100 years ago, that person dead and gone, and most of their family and the land has been reused and shuttled into the system. Without proper consideration, and that's what I'm saying. I'm saying it's happened here, it's happening other places, and I'm thankful to the good, kind-hearted white folks who are putting up this battle and making the fuss, because as black folks in Hillsborough County, y'all could have complained all the hell you want. If you didn't get some of these other folks involved, not only would they told you to forget about it, they told you to kiss their butt. Because it ain't like you could do anything about it. Because we don't even know who's in the ground. Well, somebody know. Somebody got records somewhere. And the fact that I heard a little old white lady on TV talking about King High School, who said I was a girl and I walked by the cemetery every day because our house is in that neighborhood somewhere. And I walked by the cemetery every day. And when they were building the school, this is what the lady said. When they were building the school, I told them, not that they couldn't see, but somebody actually told me that when Hillsborough County School System bought that property, that they was aware and they signed in the agreement that they would keep that as a cemetery. So they would do whatever respect was needed to honor the folks who were buried there, and that they had more than enough land to build and do stuff that they wanted to do, and they could do the right thing for the folks who was in the cemetery.
I think that's great. Now, it's good of the leadership.
Well, the current leadership has said, Jeff Aiken said that they're going to do the right thing.
That's even better.
So money and a lot of issues that come up. The fact that they did the ground penetrating radar to find out that there were caskets there after someone made the claim. So again, now somebody made the claim now because of the Tampa Housing Authority issue. Now all of a sudden that they found this other cemetery, and now they found this other cemetery at MacDill Air Force Base. Well, there's other cemeteries out there that somebody gonna find because now it's the hot item.
Right.
You know, the hot item is to find yourself a black cemetery, you know, here somewhere, and nobody knows where it's gonna be. At least that's what they're saying. But there's enough records and enough public documents that somebody knows. And again, all this stuff happened in the last 100 years. You got people who are 100 years old who've been here, and some of these people who are 80, 90, 100 years old, they remember. But they like, you know, it's something that nobody knows about. And just because you ain't got no paperwork on it, don't mean it wasn't there, don't mean it didn't happen, and don't mean that people were disrespected or dishonored.
So is there a time frame that you've heard of when they're going to do what with that 100? I heard they had 180, 185 bodies were seen in their little X-ray scan thing they did of that area.
I heard they found 17 more.
Okay.
So
they don't have a time window on it. They're still looking.
So those are just caskets they'll find.
Ah.
You know, so like I say, you don't know how many bodies in the ground.
Okay.
You know that actually, you know, don't have a casket because the ground penetrating radar can't tell the difference between a goat bone and a dog bone, and you know.
So without exhuming, they can just do the scan and just call it good. We got a cemetery here. Let's back away and call it done.
They actually got something that I saw that where they had a boundary. So they actually got a boundary line for where the cemetery was.
Okay.
So as opposed to the Tampa Housing Authority one, you know, this one they got a boundary and said this was the cemetery. So more often than not, they're gonna find most of the bodies in the boundary that's already outlined on the King High School property. That if they take those same boundaries, do the right thing, make it a cemetery, you know, show it as a cemetery and respect it as a cemetery. You know, all intents and purposes, that's gonna be a lot easier deal than what's happening with Tampa Housing Authority, because Tampa Housing Authority only owns 1/3 of the cemetery, Zion Cemetery, that everybody's currently talking about. So Tampa Housing Authority only owns 1/3 of the property. 2/3 owned by other folks, and those folks have not come forth and have not said that they're going to do the right thing. And
I wonder if any of them are still alive. Might be stuck in some trust or someone's estate. Nobody knows about it.
Well, it's only 100 years ago, so we got people that's been. You got people that's been around, like this 90-something-year-old lady. Well, you got a lot of people that's younger who still may have some connection. Family members may have been buried there. You know, it varies, but until, and I hate to say it like this, but it is what it is. You know. Until some good, kind-hearted white folks decide that they want to do something about it, it's not going to happen.
And again,
that's about disrespect.
And I think you're pulling out just a simple truth there, Eddie, that obviously not all people of whatever color are bad. There's good in all. There's some real people that need to be just, wonder why they exist. But for the most part, there's good people in all. And as you keep contacting the good, in this case, the white people, let's say, that preferably the ones that are in control or in command or have resources, they're always the best. And a lot of them are just regular people. They'll listen and they'll go, well, gee, that's what can we do to help us out? And you find enough of those, put them together, and it's going to happen.
Well, Les
and it's
Miller,
not begging them; it's just asking.
Les Miller, who is currently the chairman of the county commissioner, said that they're going to look at all the properties owned by the county. And then and
that's a start, obviously.
And that those bodies found at MacDill. So MacDill is a federal, Air Force base. So who's going to be at the top of that chain of command and make the decision as to how much and what they do with maybe it may take somebody from Washington D.C. considering that federal land is actually owned by the federal government, and that. The head of the federal government is not in Tampa.
We can just drop a text out to Trump real quick and see if when you catch it on the side.
Yeah, not in Tampa, Florida.
Talk to us on the speakerphone, probably.
So again, we just wanted to, and we kind of evolved, transferred or egressed into a different conversation because we started out talking about David Straz, and then we end up talking about the community. And this is one point I want to make about the community before I get on to this day in history.
Mm-hmm.
I was at a meeting this morning, and the issue came up of container housing. Okay, a lot of folks got the impression that container housing is just those houses that look like containers.
Right.
I did some research and I did a presentation to some community leaders, Candy Lowe and Connie Burden and some other folks, several years ago, and showed them they got container housing that you can't tell is container housing. You can't look at it and immediately tell it's a container. And they got container housing that is 2,000 or 3,000 square feet, because you can pretty much mount them and put them together. And
like Legos.
Well, literally, they're steel boxes, and you can cut and paste and put them together and then hide the outsides, and you can't tell that they're container houses unless you start cutting them up.
So it's not like a double wide that always looks like a double wide with the wheels on it.
And those double wides are done like that for a reason. Container houses don't have to always look like a container. People choose to, and some people like that industrial look. So that's why those houses.
For Florida weather, it looks sturdy, like it hold up better.
Well, they can be sturdy no matter what you do with them. It's just that they don't have to look like a container.
Like a steel metal box.
Right. You can put bricks on the outside. You can put stucco on the outside. You can put hardy board on the outside. I mean, you can put sheathing. On the outside. You can.
So the advantage of using those, Eddie, to just building a house regularly with wood.
Well, again, you can get 2,000 or 3,000, square feet, and it's all metal box, which is a very sturdy building material, and you kind of furnish the inside.
What's the cost on that compared to just a regular wooden house?
Well, it's easier. I can go buy a metal container from the dock, that's 40 feet by 10 foot, for $2,000 or $3,000.
That's bigger than my apartment.
And most of them are used. Most of the containers that you buy, very few people buy brand new containers. Most of them are used. And what you got to do is you got to go in and probably do something to treat the floor, because you don't know what the hell was in it. But the walls and stuff you can pretty much seal with insulation, and you can seal with sheetrock.
And then on the outside, just WD-40 it down.
Yeah, you can seal it in the kind of way you want, and pretty much
joke on the WD-40.
Cover it. Yeah, you don't have to cover the whole thing. If you choose to not have your container house look like a container, then you put other things on the outside.
But you still build the walls outside and then put it on the inside.
No, you don't have to build anything. You can literally cover up the corrugated.
Well, you need a foundation, right? You need a foundation.
Well, no matter what you do, you got to put it on a foundation.
Okay, so you got your foundation, and then you got the outside metal thing, and you're going to put, you said, whatever outside.
Well, the outside metal thing could be 1, 2, 10, 20. You can literally do like Legos. So you can put 30 of them together and call it a community. You can build them, 4 high. You got 4 high, times the space within a 40 by 40, and within
what about
40 by
electricity?
10 by 40.
Are they going to get hit more with electricity or with the lightning? Because they're metal.
No, you don't end up being metal. End up being covered like everything else. I mean, you can put a lightning rod on it. Why? How would a lightning rod work on an 80-story building and not work on something that's 10 feet off the ground?
I'm talking about a metal building there. I don't know about that.
Yeah, but a lot of these big buildings are metal buildings. You think these big buildings that got a steel structure ain't a metal building because they clad it with
but I ain't living in one of them. You're talking about living in this box.
But they got people living in those buildings. All those buildings downtown that are residential, people living in them. And if you live into a big steel building, that's got steel and glass, you got much more likely a chance of getting struck by lightning in that big building than you do in a little one. So it's the nature of what people talk about. So a lot of people got some misnomers going out in the community about, it's got to look like a tiny house. It ain't got to look like a tiny house. You can have a 3,000 square foot, container home. Put a bunch of them together. You can make it as big as you want. You can have 10 bedrooms if you want, 5 bedrooms. You have big atriums. There's all kind of stuff you can do with it. And so they've been miscast, for a political agenda, because they say, well, well, that's gonna make the community look poor. No, it don't. It don't
No,
have to.
no, go down there to where is it? Channel Side? They got a bunch of them set up over there.
Well, and those are commercial, but
Okay.
but they got residential container homes
I haven't seen the
and all
residential
kind
yet.
of in all kind of places, and you can't tell. You can't tell they're not they are container houses because the people don't want them to look like container house. That's a look, and some politicos have used that as an effort to say, well, we don't want it to degrade, or lower the neighborhood or lower property values. Well, again, you don't have to put a container house on your property. You could put 5 of them, and then you got a 1,500 2,000 square foot building, and it's just as big as every other house on your block. And you can't tell it any different from the rest of the houses on your block. It can
Once you decorate the outside.
Just look like the rest of them. You can't tell unless you get down to the structure that it's a container house. But again, people agenda is, well, we don't want them in our community because it makes the community look bad. It don't have to. No different than anything else you build. And they got some architects and engineers can make it look however the hell you want. If you want it to look like a boat, they can make it look like a boat. They got folks with the talent and skill in this community to do that. Let me get to.
I want to do some turkey facts after you get done with that. All right? I got some instant turkey facts.
Okay, well, let me do on this day.
Let's go.
On this day in history, November the 23rd, 1889, the first jukebox. See, I never thought.
That's an old word.
You never thought.
Old word,
yeah.
jukebox.
The first jukebox was made. The first jukebox made its debut in San Francisco at the Palace Royale Saloon. So the first jukebox ever. They had it at a saloon. Now, again, I don't know if they had a night when ladies of the night associated with it. Just drinking or whatever. But that's where it came into debut. On this day, November 23rd, 1964, in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, the International Swimming Hall of Fame was founded. And I didn't even know they had an International Hall of Fame for swimming. But again, I guess if you're going to have one, Fort Lauderdale is
they got money to build and put it in there, let's do it.
Place for it to be.
There you go.
On this day, and this is probably the most famous thing to happen on this date, in 1998, Dennis Rodman filed for an annulment from Carmen Electra. Now,
you sure she wasn't running away from him?
No, I'm just reading what the facts said. Okay.
He looked better in a dress than she did.
The two had been married on November the 14th, 1998.
He had some serious heels. What's that?
So they was only married for 2 weeks. So
he was good. He was done.
Well, I guess
all good.
I guess he wanted to see what she was made of, and it only took 2 weeks to figure that out. So I'm just saying.
Moving on.
And last but not least, and then Gabriel going to give us some Halloween turkey facts. On this date, November the 23rd, 1998, the tobacco industry signed the biggest U.S. civil settlement. It was a $206 billion deal to resolve remaining state claims for treating sick smokers.
Yeah, that hasn't stopped.
$206 billion.
Since that time, they've gone overseas to market to children, so that didn't quite pan out too well. All right, folks, we get your pencil paper, quick turkey facts.
Yeah.
While you're sitting around with the family, stuffing yourself to where you can't see straight, the turkey you are going to be eating is probably around 18 weeks old, as it only takes a little over 4 months for the bird to reach maturity. And we wonder why we're gaining weight. 80% of Americans eat turkey on Thanksgiving Day. The appendage that hangs from a turkey's forehead to the beak is called a snood. There you go.
Okay.
And the one that hangs from the neck to the chin is called a wattle. I think as we all get old, we men tend to have them wattle things going on. Big Bird's costume is made up of several thousand turkey feathers. Well, that's great for that one. Baby turkeys are precocial, meaning that they have to fend for themselves after birth. A baby turkey is called a poult, P-O-U-L-T, a baby turkey. And the first TV dinner was made of Thanksgiving leftovers. Don't forget, domestic turkeys are too heavy to fly, and like us, because we eat it also. Wild turkeys can run up to 55 miles per hour. Wild turkey. That's not the bottle stuff, guys. That's something else. We're talking the bird. One male turkeys gobble. Only male turkeys gobble. Females make more of a clicking noise. So there you go, folks. Some turkey history. So you'll know after your eyes get cross-eyed from eating and having that sugar and pumpkin pies and all them desserts, like, oh yeah, I remember that great stuff that Gabe talked about. That'll make the family laugh.
All right.
Anyway.
And I normally don't do this, but somebody texts me the address of a container home in East Tampa.
Oh, really?
So the address is 3612 Newkirk Way. And they say it's a beautiful container home. So those
folks, don't do a traffic accident thing. Just one at a time. Get over there and look at it.
For those who want to see a container home,
we don't want a traffic incident
in East Tampa. The address is 3612 Newkirk Way. So, thank you for sending that in. And like I say, normally I don't do that, but since we hear and we talked about it for so much.
Thank you very much for listening, folks. We appreciate you.
And something else I wanted to do too.
More people listen in.
I wanted to make sure that folks understood that January is going to be a big month for the community of Tampa. It's going to be a big month for Porch Talk Radio because we're going to have our 10th anniversary party celebration, during the Black Heritage Festival. We're going to make a big deal. We're going to try to get as many folks in the community involved with it. We're going to try to get a bunch of you guys on the radio show. So we're going to have a table set up. We want you to come out. We want you to kind of line up, and come talk to the community. If something that's a burning issue, you just want to call, do some shout outs. We normally don't do that, but since it's our 10th year, we figured, 10, we walking and we talking and we got a listenership, and we can stand to have a show that we dedicate to the community. So it won't be me and Gabriel, Gabriel and Willie, Tim, or none of the regular folks here talking about what we normally talk about. We're gonna let you talk about. Oh, and also I said I got another one.
Uh-oh.
And it says someone that's, and again, since I'm sitting here with my phone, I might as well.
Go on.
Okay, there's a container house, a container church off of MLK and 30th Street. So one of my good
a church, okay.
One of my good friends, so if the container church is big enough for a church, it definitely could be big enough for a house. So again, the small house thing, the small house is one thing on its own, and a lot of those small houses, tiny houses or whatever you want to call it, those are not all containers. Some of them are made out of wood and bricks,
right,
and tiny homes. They some of them are buses that they got converted into houses and stuff. So they come in all shapes and sizes and a little bit of everything. So for them to catalog and say, oh, all those are little teeny houses and a family of 6 or 7, can't live in it. Well, you can make it big as you want. You could take 2 or 3 containers and put them together and make yourself a decent sized house out of it. So again, it's all in the imagination. So don't let somebody talk you into or out of something just because it don't fit their political agenda, or it's not rubbing them right, and somehow you want to think the community is going to be, all community houses, could be container housing.
Mm-hmm.
Those container houses, some of them you can't tell they're container houses.
Right.
And if you can't tell they're container houses, it's not going to affect the appearance, the attitude, or the atmosphere, of the community. So it won't be like black folks, live in all these container houses, which is what they would tend to do. Or when you cross the railroad track and you get down there with all those container houses, that's the black community. That's the black neighborhood.
Because they look like they look.
And that's a fear. You're right, that's a fear. And in several years they're going to be all run down. Well,
it's a container.
It's a steel box. And many of them have already been riding on the back of ships and all over the ports of the world for 50 years. A lot of those containers you buy, they're already 50 years old. So So again, this is Porch Talk Radio. We're about to run out of time.
Yep.
So I wanted to make sure I said thank you for all the listeners and for the folks who's texting me and the folks who called in. You know, we're here for you, and we continue to be here for another 10 years, and we're going to have a big celebration next month. So, Gabriel.
God bless America. We love you guys. If anything offended you here, well, that just suck it up too bad. Pray for us. We're good. Have a great weekend.
Until next week, we love you.
Gobble, gobble.
Bye-bye.